Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this talk today on school standards, school assessment, and school management systems. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker, our eminent guest for today, Mr. Bharat Parmar from CII, who will be discussing this subject with you over the course of the next hour or so. We have already put up the theme for discussion a few minutes back as a message from my side as to what are the broad areas this particular talk will cover. And we welcome your questions, comments, and suggestions, and we will take them along for response from our eminent speaker. With this introduction, I now request Bharat Parmar to start his discussion.
Thank you, Gaurav. A very good afternoon to all of you. As Gaurav introduced, the topic of discussion today is school standards, school assessment, and school management systems. What we have done is we've just posted a few thematic questions that we will have our discussions around. And uh, yeah, so we've just given some thematic questions. While we will have discussions around those, please feel free to come up with questions that you have in your mind. But I would sincerely request you to limit yourself to the topic and not digress. Um, so as you would know, school quality assessment and accreditation system is what we will be talking about. This primarily revolves around scholastic and post-scholastic domains, the physical infrastructure in the school, the faculty management, how do we manage the teachers and the staff, the school leadership, which is the principals and the vice principals, um, learning outcomes across all levels, and obviously the satisfaction of pupils and the parents. So just to give you an idea about how will we move ahead in the discussion, while I'll just give you a brief overview. After that, we have your questions coming up in the online chat. We'll go through that, and based on the questions which suit the topic or which are within the topic or the domain that we're going to talk about, we'll take up those questions one by one. Just to elaborate on what we mean by school standards, school assessment, and school management systems, um, there are these broad areas that actually come under um, uh, this larger scheme of school standards. A good framework, I would say, to look at is the School Quality Assessment and Accreditation System of CBSE. So this is just an example of a framework. These frameworks can be designed by various boards for various school systems. And this is a very generic framework that I want to refer here. Uh, the major domains of SQAA of CBSE cover scholastic processes and outcomes, which effectively means curriculum planning, teaching learning out processes, student assessment and performance. The other topic that we will that it covers is our post-scholastic processes and outcomes. This is again the life skills, the value system, the attitudes that the students need to be inculcated through the school system, the work education, visual and performing arts, health and physical activities. So this is the more holistic way of looking at things than our traditional system that we have in India. Then the next topic is infrastructure, with adequacy, functionalities, and aesthetics of the infrastructure of a school. This again covers classrooms, laboratory, computer labs, ICT facilities, playground, the offices of the principal and the leadership team at the school, staff room, administrative officers, sports and games facilities, arts and music facilities, infirmary or the medical room, water and sanitation, health management systems, the overall furniture, lighting and ventilation, safety and disaster management, which is very important in today's environment, and then eco-friendly orientation of aesthetics and the lawns and green plants. The next head that SQA covers is what is known as human resources, which is again school staff, and this interestingly also involves parents. Parents are perhaps one of the most important stakeholders in the whole ecosystem. Alumni for larger schools, maybe, and obviously the students. Management and administration, institutional planning mechanisms, goal setting, policy setting, um, then data and record management, the standard operating procedures of every school, financial administration, uh, then the leadership, which is little high and may not be relevant for the complete spectrum of the school system, but for larger schools, the leadership, vision statements, strategic plans for school improvement, and finally, this beneficiary satisfaction levels. So what I'm actually sharing is the overall framework of school quality assessment and accreditation system of CBSE. So this is just a broad framework that a typical school standards or school assessment and school management systems follow, not just in India, but globally. And this topic of discussion today is around this, and we want to seek your inputs, your thoughts on this topic. And what we will do is, as I was talking, there are some questions which have come up. We will go through those questions and maybe take some of those questions one after another. So the first one I would want to take up is by Mr. Deepak Khaitan. Your reference to uh, the CCE of CBSE, Continuous and Comprehensive Evaluation Framework. Yes, it is a good system, or it is a good, I would use the word framework here, for that CBSE has come up with. And this is something that we obviously have in mind that we'll take up when we design the overall school standards and school assessment. And we thank you for emphasizing on it. Yoga training as a part of overall school standards. Yeah, thank you for the suggestion, but I would like to assume that this is little outside the topic. So this is about the question by Mr. Raghavendra Srinivasan, and yeah, yoga training in all schools are of international standards. It makes sense, but as far as school standard and school assessment is concerned, it can be made a part of what is known as what I just referred to in SQA as post-scholastic processes and outcomes. And within that, I would say health and physical activities is what this particular topic comes under. And what you are referring to, do we have enough yoga teachers? So that I would like to skip, because that's outside the scope of this discussion. Yeah. So yeah, I have those. Questions. So so the questions, the thematic questions that we had posted right in the beginning was, what are the ways to improve community participation in school management? Let me just elaborate on this a little. Now, community participation in improving the overall school standards or school assessment is around the involvement of all the stakeholders in a particular school. So let's take an example. A school in a district X, the community there would be the local panchayat, all the parents in that village or the district, irrespective of where their ward goes to that school or not. They're all stakeholders. So I have another question that Okay. So there's a question by Mr. Gaurav Gautam on. I'll just read it out. Read out the first sentence of that question. Usually in CBSE board, private school forces teachers to buy particular private author book and do not follow NCRT. But due to commission, so this again is outside the scope. But what this actually brings out is the malaise that all of us are aware of. But having said that, as far as school standards or school assessment is concerned, the framework involves ongoing self audits. Now, ongoing self audits would actually cover uh, this particular aspect, which should come out in the self audit. Now, I know it gets into this loop where you're auditing yourself and you know that this is a part of the system that needs to be improved upon. So that's where the framework actually insists that gets into self audits. As beyond that, it actually gets into I would call the regulatory bodies, and I think that we should stay away from this at this point. Yeah, the next thematic question, since we have some time and we don't have questions that we can discuss. Um, the second question or thematic question that we had posted was, what should be the role of the panchayat in the management of the schools? We currently have systems where the panchayat is actually involved in the decision making of the leadership hiring, which is effectively the principals. Um, and also on an ongoing basis, the panchayat monitors it. What the current system perhaps needs to be strengthened with uh, is actually enabling them or helping them uh, understand the school standards and school assessment systems that the policymakers come up with. So there involves that training. So basically, the current panchayat involvement is around only at a hiring and to some extent the financial management of the local school also. There's a good question that we have. I would say comment, not a question, from Mr. Merrill Anthony. Community participation is a good idea. However, enforcing it is a challenge. It needs to be followed up with continuous monitoring and transparency. It can't be a top-down approach. You've hit the nail right on the head, and that's where the self-audits by the community, by the school, with the help of the community, is what we are talking about in terms of school standards. So the community actually is empowered and actually enabled. Before it's empowered, it actually has to understand what comes under school standards and school management systems, giving them a framework or a training on the framework that the policymakers will come out with, and using that framework is what the community should evaluate. So if you notice a global the way it is done in, for example, charter schools in the US, the community is involved where uh, the actually the community is trained. Which, so let's take one stakeholder in the community, the parent teacher association. The parent teacher association is actually trained by the local geography or local government authorities on the school standards and assessment frameworks, and then the community uses that to monitor. So to the parent associations use that framework to evaluate the school on an ongoing basis. So that's the question that needs to be, or that's the link that needs to be bridged as the policy evolves. And yes, you've pointed out the right gap in the system, which is enforcing it. And but before enforcement, you need to actually train them or enable the communities or each stakeholder in the community to how to monitor and ensure that the school standards are implemented. So as I see, there are a couple of questions more around the quality of teachers or mm, it again the physical teacher education teacher question is also actually quite clearly out of scope of the topic that we are discussing, which is again I'll repeat that our topic for discussion today is around school standards, the assessment frameworks, and the school management systems. While these seem like a loaded whatever topic, let me simplify it by saying that what we are talking about is the way a school should be continuously monitored, evaluated, and improved upon. So, how to evaluate a school, how to improve, what are the parameters on which a school should be evaluated on, and how should we improve on each of those parameters on an ongoing basis, which obviously will mean collecting data and then so. I just thought I'll repeat or kind of simplify this loaded topic, which seems a little loaded, and then so let's. I would request you to share your thoughts and or rather um, help us drive this discussion more around this topic. Yeah. So the framework that I was talking about, again to drill down, what we are talking about are performance indicators for each of those things that come on how to evaluate a school. I'll again simplify it. What we are talking about parameters or simple criteria of evaluating a school. And by evaluation, we mean capturing data pre and post to help improve the school on an ongoing basis. So what we seek your inputs on are what are the parameters on which we should evaluate schools, and then the objective of the evaluation is to improve on each of those parameters on an ongoing basis. Thank you, Mr. Anthony, for your um, comment on the charter schools. Yes, charter schools are a good example. So yeah, you kind of emphasizing on what I actually shared. So I just gave an example of a parent-teacher association, or sorry, parent association, and just to give you an idea, the training there is pretty much on an ongoing basis. I know of a charter system in the northeastern part of the country in the US, and there the training happens on a quarterly basis. Simple logic is that parents are they move in and move out, so they have to be trained on an ongoing basis to evaluate the school, and the whole objective of it is to actually help the school improve. Referring to the question or the comment of Dr. Pragya Mohan, uh, uh, ma'am, what you're referring to as your proposal or the holistic development of the students, this would again come under what is the broader aspect of the post scholastic processes, and this is an important aspect, and um, so this forum I perhaps is not the right forum where we can actually suggest you to. Yeah, maybe you can just give the proposal to MHRD. Is there a yeah? So just send your proposal on the MHRD website, and we'll revert on that. Uh, Moving to the third um, uh, thematic question that we have in the list of 5 questions that we gave in the beginning. It is about how can we implement an assessment and accreditation system in schools. Now, accreditation systems, if you notice, globally, not just limited to the K through 12 framework, but also to the higher education. There are a few organizations which are impaneled and are trained on the frameworks as designed by the policymakers. Based on that framework, the accreditation agencies accredited accredited the educational institutions, be it in K through 12 or higher ed. Um, and In India also we have a framework, and while it's still evolving, but the framework there also actually expects self audits. Now, uh, this is a little bit of a process that takes little time, where you're expecting the assessment frameworks to evolve uh, for self audits, and in the process help yourself improve. So it's like, you need a different level of religiosity, our systems are evolving, but yes, um, uh, it's an ongoing process. This is a question that a question or comment or paragraph by Ms. Smita Sigdar. This is something that, um, so what you've covered are various things, multiple things that actually come under the assessment framework. So one of the things, so for example, let's take generate values. Now, the value system, if you noted, I was talking about school quality assessment and SQA of CBSE. It again is covered under post-scholastic processes and outcomes. The value system is an important part of the skills of the core scholastic process framework that SQAA uh, promotes. The second point there you have is on creative writing. That again is part of, I would say, the typical life skills and various other skills. Third is college libraries. Now, while the various boards and regulatory bodies have clearly defined um, 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 uh, principles and quantifiable measures on how should a school library look like, there has to be a continuous self audit, and that's the process that we are talking about in terms of school standards. Mm, can you just scroll it down a little so that I can see? Yeah. Uh, Interdisciplinary studies. Um, well, this is a part of the curriculum planning, and this is where our school system actually gives the liberty to the curriculum planning team of a particular, of every school, where actually the group of teachers in every area sit at the beginning of every year to plan their delivery for the session, and that's where the interdisciplinary interactions between the areas is covered. Yeah, next. Yeah, yeah, this is so set of questions by Arun underscore 42. Um, could you expand a little more about school standards? Are these standards for facilities, faculty, teaching material, or all that and others? What kinds of standards currently exist, and where can we find more information about it? I had referred to this. I had referred to SQAA, which is School Quality Assessment and Accreditation System of CBSE. So see, that framework is one of the framework. There are multiple such frameworks. I'm just referring to CBSE because it's one of the larger boards. That framework actually covers the whole gamut. Just to take the overall areas, scholastic processes one, second is post-scholastic processes, third is infrastructure, which involves everything: classrooms, laboratory, computer labs, ICT facilities, playgrounds, the office areas, the staff rooms, sports and games facility, infirmary, furniture, lighting, and ventilation. Fourth area is human resources. Human resources, management, and within human resources, obviously the school staff, non-teaching staff, and the teaching staff, including parents and alumni, uh, management and administration, the planning mechanisms, the improvement, institutional improvement processes, process of accreditation and certification. The sixth area in the SQA framework is leadership, and the seventh is beneficiary satisfaction. So measuring the satisfaction levels on an ongoing basis helps you strengthen the framework that we are talking about. To summarize, Arun, what we are talking about is the CBSE's SQA is one of the many frameworks available that you can download. Link to it, just go to, you have it on CBSE website under the accreditation group. I can't obviously read out the link, but then just go to CBSE website, and under the accreditation section, you will find SQA framework. I'll repeat this again: School Quality Assessment and Accreditation System. Yeah, the question of Tejas Kumar Patel, uh, school to teacher to student ratio. Now, various boards follow guidelines, and those are again guidelines which the board affiliation process actually ensure that those guidelines are followed, and those guidelines actually are bands within which you need to have your student teacher ratios. Um, so for example, from what I remember, I may be wrong, but for CBSE, it's 1.5 per 30 is to 1 is the teacher student ratio, and 1.5 is to classroom is to teacher ratio. And different boards have different criteria. These have to be evolved. Some of them have been evolving, and state boards have different criteria, but so you can refer to those specific board criteria. To the question of Mr. Gaurav Gautam, while I think this is outside the topic that we are discussing, but again, it is the prerogative of a particular board in terms of is it possible to have a 5-day school. So you need to refer to the guidelines of the specific board that you need to know about. So Mr. Patel, to your question that in Gujarat, the student teacher ratio is 1:30, but in your village, you have 8 schools, and in which there are on an average, if I'm reading it correctly, you're talking about 4 teachers. So yes, you have a skewed ratio there, and this again comes under so the policy or the board guidelines are fairly well documented. And but having said that, we in our country know that we have a shortage of teachers, and but you must bring this up to or bring this to the district education officer, which is the DEO, under whom who has to send the teacher hiring request to the state board level, and then this is where your D. Yeah, to the comment, to the set to a set of comments, I would say by Mr. Vinay Kumar Khatri. Uh, so these are systemic. I would use the word challenges, primarily because of the shortage of teachers that our country is facing. Um, Now, the standards actually do cover those, but then the standards develop those guidelines. But after that, when it comes to implementation, there are on the ground challenges that um, 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 that our system is facing. There are some societal challenges, there are others, but then as far as this topic of discussion now is concerned, I think we cannot cover this, and this demands a completely different forum. So as we wait for other questions to come, I'll go back to the thematic questions that we were talking about. We had covered the third question. Moving on to the fourth one. Uh, what are performance indicators for grading schools? Performance indicators, from what I'm aware of, we have not come out with performance indicators. We have the framework of evaluating schools. Now, that framework means the criteria or the PIs, but what are the boundaries? Those are not very well defined, at times deliberately, simply because various school, a school standard framework actually um, uh, is more prescriptive than mandatory, and the moment it gets prescriptive, it is for a larger school system, starting from a small school in a village to a large international school in a large city. And therefore the prescriptive framework can only talk about the criteria or the parameters, but not about the bands within which each particular parameter should play. To the question of Ms. Asmita Sigdar, to a tweet by Mr. J.B. Bhatt on mm, your suggestion that all government schools, primary or secondary, should be linked online for knowing their performance by everybody. So that is one of the uh, things that the school management systems within the topic actually is going to cover. Um, what is the name of the project? This actually is being implemented under what is known as a project on school information system, um, right, under Ministry of HRD and NISG. So thank you for your suggestion, Mr. Bhatt, for your tweet. It actually is being implemented, and I'm not aware of the timelines, but then you can actually go to the respective section on the website, and I'm sure there is information available there. Yeah. Can we have a compulsory personality development programs at school? Now, so that again comes under post-scholastic processes. Now, what this again, I'll just go back to the topic that we are discussing. We are discussing the framework of school assessments, and then which effectively means the standards and the criteria and the bands under which each criteria should operate in. And personality development is actually a part of the post-scholastic processes and outcomes that the framework processes, the framework proposes. To a question, very brief and small question by Mr. Abhishek Kumar. Is an excellent question. How will SQAA ensure compliance? SQAA, Mr. Kumar, is again the framework. The way you can ensure compliance is ongoing audits. Ongoing audits can be of two types: one self audits, the other audits by an external agency. Within that, the external agency can be an accreditation agency which adopts or adapts the framework to accredit the school, or by a regulatory. And this is where educational systems like what we have in India, and the reason why I'm using like is that most of the developed education systems actually do not have regulatory bodies enforcing compliance. In most of the cases, it is left once the framework is designed and implemented, uh, designed and trained upon. There are accreditation agencies. So in our case, for example, CBSE has a empaneled list of agencies, and there are 12 of them. They are the ones who actually ensure compliance. So if you note, CBSE also does not say that it mandates. What it says is that these are empaneled agencies that you can use to ensure compliance through self-audit. So again, it's the school which invites one of these empaneled agencies for an audit, and therefore it again is a self-audit. Yeah. To the question of Ms. Ashmita Sigdar, can we have a faculty exchange program at school? Yes, obviously yes. It's again not an indicator, but having said that, it's still a part of the teaching learning process. So having a faculty exchange program is a great plus when it comes to a school. Where is that? So to the question of Mr. Tejas Kumar Patel on is there any system for students whose families migrate temporarily and have no money for boarding schools? Um, um, so so there are mobile schools with in in within SSA, and those are for the migratory population which cannot afford a typical boarding school. Which one? This current experience I don't want to cover because I put it on mute. I don't want to cover because I'm not aware of the current. I mean, I'm aware, but then that will mean going into. We've covered all of things actually. We covered each point in this. Prakash Casey. Do we have any relevant question? Wait. Okay. So what is the time up? We started at 5. 4 minutes. Okay. So what's the how can they send their suggestions again in this forum? Only they can continue that. Okay. Since we don't have any other relevant question, what we think and what we propose is we'll keep this session open until 5 p.m. wherein the participants can post their comments and we will seek those inputs. As I had shared in the beginning, we are collating each and every question and based on relevance, we will actually integrate them in the overall as overall inputs to the overall to the NEP. And so please keep your please share your thoughts and keep the posts on. And we sincerely thank you for participating in the discussion, and welcome your thoughts even after we close the session now. Our time was from 5 to 5:45. We'll close the session soon, but then please keep your comments coming in. To one more question that Mr. Abhishek Kumar has. Yes, the federal structure of our country actually ensures that the policy making process is collaborative between the central government and the state governments, and and the school standards and the framework that this topic is responsible for, or this topic covers, is actually it gets collaborative the moment we actually seek an inputs from the larger audience like you, and the states are also involved, and we've involved in the policy making process. And so all these are channels from which we are seeking inputs. And yes, thanks for your suggestion on are we seeking inputs from the states. Yes, we are. This is a collaborative process, and inputs are being sought through various channels from all the stakeholders. Thank you so much for your time, and as I said, the session will be on for your comments until 5 p.m. tomorrow. Please keep your comments coming in, and we will collate them and integrate them as we get into the policy making process. Once again, many thanks for joining the discussion.